Hi, and welcome to the podcast, Help Me Rhonda. I'm your host, Dr. Rhonda Karg. I'm a clinical psychologist. And for each episode on this podcast, I present mental health related information to you. Sometimes, like today, we're going to be reading a question that was submitted to me anonymously about mental health. And we're going to talk today about depression. So the letter that I received from one of the listeners reads, I need help. I suffer from depression. The reason I'm depressed is because my finances are not good. And on top of that, my mom says if things don't change, I'll be sleeping in my truck, which means I'll be evicted. I've tried everything and everyone, but they all turn their backs on me. What should I do? Help me, Rhonda. So first off, the only thing we have control over is what we focus our minds on and how we behave, what reactions we have to things. Those are the things that we have control over. We don't have any control over what people in your family are doing. It's possible that you guys could maybe go to some family therapy and work some things out. It sounds like your finances, probably maybe do a little bit of work, maybe with, they have like free financial counseling places, and I'll email you a list of places where you can get that information that can help out with your finances. And in terms of you, depression is really serious and can be life-threatening, so I want you to go get some professional help. Go to the Psychology Today website, look for a therapist. They have a searchable database, and you can search for a therapist based on what they specialize in, what insurance they accept, whether they have availability right now or not. So go to the Psychology Today website, search the database based on your zip code, and they'll find local therapists for you. And you can read their profiles and see who sounds good, and then you can email them and just copy and paste the messages and send it out to maybe 5 different people that you think you might be a good fit with, and then correspond with them, see if they have availability, see if you guys are a good fit and all that. So, and I would say also that I would go to your family doctor and maybe get started on an antidepressant. So research has shown time and time again that the best outcomes for treating depression is a combination of medication and psychotherapy. So, and they actually work together synergistically. So it's like 1 + 1 is 3, not 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 3. They work together in that way. So I would really encourage you to get some help, get some professional help. Tell them about how you've been feeling, and they can tell you if you have major depressive disorder or not. Major depressive disorder affects roughly 3 million adults in the US every year. It's very common. I think I read a statistic that 60% of the population will experience a major depressive episode sometime in their lifetime. I think it's 60%. So depression is very common. The theories about what causes depression generally follow what we call a diathesis-stress model, which means that a person has a genetic predisposition for a condition like depression, and then when you add stress to their environment, it's like pouring Miracle-Gro on that genetic predisposition, and the disorder just blooms, right? So it's a combination of a biological predisposition and stress at the same time. Okay, that's the diathesis-stress model, and it's very common for a lot of different mental disorders in terms of theories about what causes it. We know that depression is caused by the neurochemicals in your brain and an imbalance in your neurochemicals in your brain. And if you think about it, your brain is an organ. It can get inflamed just like any other part of your body. If it's being bathed in adrenaline and cortisol and some of these other stress hormones, and there's not enough serotonin or norepinephrine or dopamine, emotions, depression is really caused by a chemical reaction in your brain. Now, that's not to say that there aren't things that you can do, and I'm going to teach you some things today that you can do that might make your depression better as well. So while you're waiting to see the doctor, waiting to find a therapist, you can start working on things slowly. This is going to be like baby steps. You're going to be very compassionate with yourself. You're going to be very compassionate with yourself. Depression can be very debilitating, and now more than ever, it's important to show up for yourself and express compassion and support, and I'm going to take care of you, and it's okay. Things are going to be okay. Like, basically talk to yourself like you would talk to a younger person who maybe is getting ready to have surgery, right? What would you say to a 6-year-old that was scared? You would say, I know that you're scared to have surgery tomorrow. This is a routine surgery. They do it all the time. And you're going to be in really good hands. And pretty soon this is going to be in your rearview mirror. And when you get done with surgery, I'm going to be there to take care of you. And your mommy and daddy are going to be there to help take care of you. And you're going to get to feeling better in no time, okay? And you're so brave. Okay, so you would talk to a 6-year-old that was going into surgery the next day like that. I want you to talk to yourself in the same kind of way, okay? Because you are going through a really hard time right now. And as I said, the only two things in life we have control over is what we focus our mind on and how we behave. Those are the only two things we have control over. So exercise that control. Exercise what you focus your mind on. One thing that I try to do in the mornings is have a gratitude list. Research shows that if you work on a gratitude list for 15 minutes a day, that's actually more effective than an antidepressant, and so that's pretty powerful stuff. And basically, what you're doing in a gratitude meditation is you just set the timer and just write down as many things as you can that you're grateful for, and do it each day. And you can repeat things each day. That's okay. What'll happen over time is that you'll start to become more and more detailed in terms of the things that you're grateful for. It'll start out real big about, like, you're grateful to have a roof over your head and you're grateful to have food and things like that. But as time goes on, you get better and better at looking for things that you're grateful for, and you'll start noticing all these things that you're grateful for. You're teaching your brain to look for things to be grateful for. This can help your mood a lot. So I would practice a daily gratitude list for 15 minutes a day. Moving is always a good idea. Moving, getting your blood circulating, 30 minutes of movement a day, 30 minutes of cardio a day if you can, or at least 3 times a week. You got to get that blood pumping, and it'll help you burn off some of the brain fog that can happen sometimes with depression. So that reminds me, I should also talk about what the symptoms of depression are. So depression is characterized by the following 9 symptoms. In order to have depression, you don't have to have all 9 symptoms. You only have to have 5 of them. So, this is just a guideline. This is to give you an idea of how many symptoms you have, but really you need to go see a professional to find out if you have major depression or not. But here are the symptoms. So the first one is the classic feeling depressed or down most of the day, nearly every day. So feeling sad and hopeless, feeling empty, okay, most of the day, nearly every day for at least 2 weeks. And the second is anadonia. And anadonia is a fancy word for saying that the thrill is gone. You're just not enjoying things like you used to enjoy. Let's say that you used to like to cook and now you couldn't care less if you cook or not. That's what happens for some people who experience depression. Another is a disturbance in eating. And by that I mean that you're either eating much more or much less than usual, and you've either gained or lost some weight. And a lot of people will even feel like they need to force themselves to eat. That happens a lot in depression. So there's a disturbance in eating. Likewise, there's a disturbance in sleeping, such that the person is sleeping a lot more or a lot less than usual. And let's say you're only getting 5 hours of sleep a night, 4 or 5 hours, or maybe not sleeping at all. Okay, and then you compare that to what you usually get, and we're looking for a pretty drastic change in the amount that you're sleeping. Some people sleep a lot more, some people sleep a lot less. It sort of depends on the presentation. There's a kind of depression there's a specifier called with anxious distress for major depression, and a lot of times with anxiety and depression coexisting, you have more of a amped up, nervous, agitated depression than you do in a more of what I call like a vegetative depression, where everything slows down. Okay, for some people it speeds up and they get more agitated. Another symptom of depression is feelings of worthlessness, like that people would be better off if you weren't here, that you're a burden, being really, really hard on yourself for things that you've either done or not done in your life. And we would say that a symptom of depression is when you have inappropriate guilt or feelings of worthlessness. Inappropriate guilt meaning that maybe you didn't really play a role in the thing you're feeling guilty about. Okay, so it's just being really hard on yourself. This is just tremendous shame. Another symptom of depression is trouble thinking and concentrating and making decisions. So it's like a problems thinking, and some people with depression describe it as like a fog, a mental fog, where they just can't think right, and it's hard for them to read, and it's hard for them to make decisions about even small things. So some people with depression experience those cognitive symptoms. Another is what we call motor retardation, which is moving much more slowly, or psychomotor agitation, which is a more keyed up, restless presentation, and not just the subjective effect of that, but we're looking for people also seeing it in you and maybe commenting on the fact that you seem to be talking or moving more slowly or moving more than usual. We're looking for that subjective account as well. Another symptom of depression is fatigue. A lot of people with depression will just say, gosh, I felt like I could just sleep all the time. Again, this is mostly for people that are more of a slow down depression, as I call it. And those folks just experience extreme fatigue. Similarly, the psychomotor retardation, people will say they feel like they're moving through molasses. So it's a slowdown. Another symptom of depression is thoughts of death and dying, or thinking that you would be better off dead. And that can be something that we call like passive suicidal ideation, where you just have thoughts like, I wish I would just go to sleep and not wake up. Or active suicidal ideation, which is when you think about not only would it be nice, you think about like specific ways you would do that, and it's much more detailed. You might even rehearse it. Okay, that's what we call active suicidal ideation, and in any case, it needs to be taken very seriously. So at the bottom of the link for this description, I'll include the phone numbers for the National Lifeline, where counselors are available 24/7, 365 days a year, available to talk to you and help you out if you're feeling suicidal. So let your friends know, have that number in your phone in case you need to share it with anyone who's in crisis. But suicidal ideation is something that a lot of people have trouble talking about, but it's really important for you to understand that, again, it's oftentimes really just a biological imbalance in terms of your neurotransmitters that are causing the suicidal thoughts, or some people take antidepressants and have suicidal thoughts too. So if you have a spike in suicidal thoughts, it could be related to medication, but again, chances are that it has some biological basis, right? So do reach out for help. Do talk to people about how you're feeling and get some help for yourself, but do take it seriously, okay? And again, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We're working on fighting the stigma associated with mental health and mental health struggles. And so as part of that, one of my goals is to teach you new skills. So a couple more skills I want to teach you tonight. One is called Observe and Describe, and this is actually in the DBT toolbox. And Observe and Describe is taking in information from your five senses and describing it literally out loud, or you could do it, I guess, to yourself too. You don't have to always do it out loud, but describing, labeling what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, okay? So you're gonna describe what you're experiencing. And by doing that, believe it or not, just by labeling things, like I noticed that this chair is yellow, and I noticed that it has like a winged top, and I noticed that it comes up to the bottom of my neck, and I noticed that it doesn't have arms, and I notice it is yellow microfiber, and it looks like it's about a 1.5 wide. Yeah, 18 inches wide. So that's observe and describe. And basically what you're doing is you're describing something in the most objective terms you can. And it does a couple things. The one thing that it does is it gives you distance between you and what's going on. So if it's a distressing situation, let's say you walk into your house and your partner is sitting in the dark, and you notice that the television is on, and you notice that a movie is playing, and you notice that when you walked in, your partner didn't say hello, they just stared straight ahead at the TV. They seemed really engrossed in the storyline. And you walk in and you notice them, and you're doing observe and describe. You're just describing them in an objective way. Versus walking into the house, seeing your partner in the dark, interpreting it as, oh no, she's depressed, what happened? Or, oh no, she must be mad at me, what did I do? Right? You can get into your head and make up stories that aren't true. So the way that you perceive a situation definitely impacts the way that you experience it. So observe and describe is good when you're When you're distressed, you can use observe and describe just to do like what we call like you could do like a food meditation, and you can describe the colors of the food, the textures, maybe the steam that's coming off of the top. You could describe what it feels like when you put it in your mouth. You can describe what it sounds like when you're chewing it. You can describe what it feels like when you're swallowing it and what it tastes like. So that's a way that you can also make just a lot of different activities just more sensual. You're much more present because you can't be doing observe and describe and also ruminating about that conversation you had with somebody in high school. You can't do the same thing. You can't do both of those things at the same time. So the key is to obviously to focus on the more positive aspects. So observe and describe, again, it releases serotonin in your brain. It's really good for distress, and it's good for just improving your mood. Another skill is my body double that I've talked to you guys about, which is that perfect replica of you that's like a holographic version of you that's like 10 feet away, that is your own therapist, your own best friend, your own chaperone, your own life coach, your own health coach. Anything that you need to hear, you can say to yourself. Okay, so my body double is, if you can imagine it being about 6 feet away from you, and it just tells you what you need to hear. Like, I know you're tired because you didn't sleep last night, and you know what? You're going to get up and you're going to go take a walk anyway because that would be good for you. Okay, so you talk to yourself in a way that will motivate you, and kind of like a life coach, or kind of like a health coach would, or your biggest fan, like a life coach would, or like a health coach would, right? They would be cheering you on and helping to motivate you. So I want you to utilize my body double to like build yourself up and help you to take care of yourself, because self-care right now is so important. Okay, I want you to think about depression as like an emotional flu. Your brain is just inflamed right now. So be really, really gentle with yourself right now. Your depression is going to make you want to be feeling bad about the fact that you're depressed and feel all this shame. And I want you to know that that's just the depression talking to you. That's not reality. You haven't done anything wrong. And I know that you're doing the best that you can, and I'm sure the people around you know that you're doing the best that you can as well, okay? And even if they don't, you know that you're doing the best that you can. And that's what all of us are doing, right? Okay, let's see. Another skill that you can use is to high-five yourself in the mirror each morning. Believe it or not, research shows that that's really good for your mood and your confidence. Is just give yourself a high five in the morning. You get done brushing your teeth, give yourself a high five. We talked about the gratitude meditation in the morning. Something I like to say to myself is, I know you've seen 10 patients today, but you know what? You're going to go upstairs and you're going to exercise anyway. You're going to do it anyway. And just not let myself off the hook. I just say, I know that you are, and we're going to do it anyway. Okay? So just remember, you know, it is hard when you're depressed. Like I've said to people, it's kind of like doing everything over your head. It just takes so much more energy and effort to do everything. Sometimes the most you'll be able to do is just put one foot on the floor. And then you can ask yourself, can I put 2 feet on the floor? Can I stand up? Can I walk across the room? Can I turn the shower on? Can I get out of my clothes? And you just take yourself baby steps. Am I willing to do this? Am I willing to do that? Try to turn that willingness dial up. Turn that willingness dial all the way up to 11, as you hear me say. Okay, we need to turn your willingness knob all the way up. You're not going to want to do these things. You're not going to want to. And that's the next skill that I was going to share with you. It's called opposite to emotion action, which is another DBT skill. And basically what it means is if your depression is making you want to isolate, you do the opposite. You go out and be social. It's the opposite of what you're inclined to do when you're not feeling well, okay? So I know all this self-care stuff is totally overwhelming, and maybe it is. I want you to just push yourself, do as much as you can, okay? Each day, do as much as you can. You have to push yourself. You have to push against the depression. You can't let it win. You have to get up and you have to keep fighting, okay? And in the meantime, hopefully you can try some of the things that I taught you today. Again, I'm really sorry that you're going through all of this at the same time, and I know that this is a really difficult period in your life. I want you to know that it's not always going to be this way, and things are going to get better, okay? So look into getting some help, and please follow up with me if you need additional suggestions for resources and YouTube videos. I'll drop some links in the bottom of this video description today. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Please hit like, subscribe, and please share with other people to share this information with others so that we can fight the stigma associated with mental health. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for your support.